in boxing, super fights are uncommon. They don't happen a lot. Thing with most super fights is they're actually fights that haven't actually taken place, such as AJ versus Fury, Ngannou versus Fury, Usyk versus Fury. A lot of super fights are fights that fans want to happen so badly, but they never actually go through. Fights that have been talked about by fighters, by fans, but they usually never make it past negotiations. There's a lot of complications in there, and then the fights just never end up happening because they fall through. Today we're going to be talking about Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, which is by no means a super fight, but it was scrapped and rescheduled, or canceled and rescheduled 3 times. Once in 2021, once in 2022, and finally a third time in 2023, where it seems like this fight will actually take place. Tommy Fury is still on the card. It's happening tomorrow, so it seems like third time's a charm. We'll finally get this fight. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about all the predictions for the main card, not the prelims, because there are a lot of debuting guys, so I don't really know what's going on there. Can't make a prediction off of that, really, but going to be going over all the main card fights and who I think will win and how. All right, we're going to move on, or we're going to go into the first fight, Ziad Al-Mayouf versus Ronald Martinez. And with Ziad being in the red corner and also looking at his wins, if we look at the thing here, it tells us that they both don't have a record. But if you look at their actual pages, they do have fights. And in Mayouf's last fight, he did get a first round knockout with a brutal straight right. It was back in August. And if we look at Ronald Martinez, he has not won since 2021. So just going off of that, really not much to go off of. And especially because it's 4 rounds, there's not going to be a lot of time to do what you want to do. I'm going to say Mayouf by unanimous decision. Now we're going to move on to Adam Saleh versus Stuart Kellogg, Evil Hero. Now, this fight is one of the 2 influencer boxing fights on this card. Adam Saleh, he is 2-0 with 2 draws, pretty weird record. He has traded wins and draws in his crossover boxing career, and he's coming off of a draw against Landon McBroom back in August on Social Gloves. No, not August, September on Social Gloves 2. Evil Hero, he's 2-1. He's coming off of a loss against Dean the Great, first round knockout loss in the Misfits Series 1 undercard. That was a brutal finish, but Dean the Great is currently the Misfits boxing champion, so it's a loss that aged fairly well, even if it was a first round knockout loss. He won against Dakota Olave. He had another win in another fight, but I don't know who he beat. It was in July, that's all I know, but it's not even written here, but just trust me when I say he's 2-1. Thing with Evil Hero, his striking is not the best. He hasn't trained as long as Adam Saleh is trained. His striking is kind of sloppy. He doesn't have a lot of power at all. And we have seen that when the pressure is put on him against like a guy who's boxed for a long time, he gets knocked out in the first round. He gets sat down a lot. He got sat down 3 times in this Dean the Great fight before it was waved off. Thing with Adam Saleh is he doesn't have a lot of power either. He's never knocked a guy down in his crossover boxing career, but he does have slick striking. He has been training for a long time, way longer than Dean the Great has been training. Evil Hero has been training, not Dean the Great. And even though his record is kind of weird, he has gone up against some really good guys like Waleed Sharks, who a lot of people argue should have beat Dean the Great, and he did go to a draw with Waleed Sharks. Even though it wasn't a draw, Waleed Sharks should have won that fight. He got completely robbed. But the fact that Adam Saleh went the distance, it's still pretty impressive, even if it was Waleed Sharks' debut fight. So he's also gone up against Landon McBroom, who was a killer in his last fight. His last fight was a pretty impressive performance, complete dominance, and he went to the distance with him too. This one was a 4-round fight, so a draw was possible. With Waleed Sharks, it was a 3-round fight, so a majority draw. It was a clear robbery. It was kind of like, Gib versus Taylor Holder, like that robbery. It was just like on a smaller scale with this one. But yeah, Waleed Sharks should have won that fight. Nonetheless, if we look at the whole MMA math here, it does say Adam Saleh. Adam Saleh should win this fight, and even disregarding MMA math because it's not valid all the time. I'm gonna still have to go with Adam Saleh. The thing with this one is, Adam Saleh is the better boxer. He just is. He's better everywhere in terms of boxing. And the thing with this one is, it is 6 rounds. It's not 3 rounds. It's not 4 rounds. Like Evil Hero's used to 3 rounds. Adam Saleh's gone 4 rounds before. This is a 6-round fight, so a finish is more likely. But I'd say it's just gonna be a bit more slower paced, and I'm gonna say decision win, unanimous decision win for Adam Saleh. If Evil Hero somehow pulls this off, I'd be shocked, genuinely shocked. I don't see any way Evil Hero can win this fight. But he is number 2 at welterweight rankings in Misfits Boxing, so maybe it's possible. And Adam Saleh's fought for an ICB title before, even though they're not valid anymore in crossover boxing. It's the fact that he fought for it is still something. So I don't know, man. I'd say Adam Saleh by unanimous decision. We're gonna move on to Muhsin Kasson versus Tariel Jafarov. So the undefeated Muhsin Kasson, 10-0, and he's going up against Tyrell Jafarov, who is 12-5. If we pull up their records right now, my computer's kind of like breaking down from all these tabs open. But if we look, yeah, it's just knockout over knockout. A lot of guys he's knocked out, a lot of guys he's finished. He's gone to a decision before, but that was back in 2019. Ever since then, he's just kind of been on a roll. His last fight was about a year ago. Yeah, when this fight happens, like tomorrow, it'll be exactly a year since he stepped into the ring. Tariel Jafarov, 12-5, but he has been on kind of a winning streak right now. 6-fight win streak, all by way of early round knockout, first or second round knockout. Before that, he was on a 3-fight knockout losing streak, but now he is on the 6-fight knockout winning streak. They're not against the best guys, obviously, but winning streak is winning streak. And Muhsin's winning streak is longer. It is 10 fights instead of 6. And he has beaten, I would say he's beaten better guys, slightly better guys, even though they're not good guys. We've seen Tariel get knocked out badly in, first round, second round. Before, this is a common thing, and it's as common as 2021, as common as December 2021, just over a year ago. This guy fights a lot. He fights, January. If we look at 2022, he fought end of January, April, May, September, October, November, and now he's fighting again in February. He's very active. He's not active against the highest level guys, but when he is active against somewhat better guys, he does get knocked out a lot. And he got knocked out 2 months in a row, and then again 3-fight knockout losing streak. We've seen him get knocked out before, and we've seen Muhsin knock out guys before. So the way I see this fight going is, I think Kasson is gonna be that guy to knock him out, and when Tariel gets knocked out, it's early. It's always early. So if I had to pick where this 8-round fight goes, I think Kasson wins it, and I think he wins it by a knockout in the second round. Early knockout is gonna bring his stock up. He's gonna maybe become a bigger name in boxing, and he might even go places. That's where I'm seeing this fight going. But we're gonna move on to Bader Al Samrin versus Viorel Simeon. So another difference here, 7-0 undefeated with Al Samrin, and Viorel Simeon is 22-9. So he looks to be the more experienced guy, right? But if we look at his page, if we just take a look at his page here, if it would load, yeah, it's not good. He hasn't won a fight since 2019. He's retired a lot of his past fights. I don't think he has it in him anymore. In his corner, he retires these fights. And with Bader Al Samrin undefeated, he's just been on a roll. He's been knocking all these guys out. And he's on a 4-fight knockout winning streak. And he's on a 7-fight winning streak in total. So the way I see this one going is, 6-fight losing streak, 7-fight winning streak. I don't really see it going any other way. I'm gonna have to pick Bader. And the thing with this one is Bader gets a lot of knockouts in the 4th round. That's where he gets most of his recent knockouts of 2022. Got a lot of them in the 4th round. He puts more pressure in those rounds, is what I'm seeing. And Viorel does retire a lot in the 4th round. His most retirements in the fights come in the 4th round. So the way I see this one going is Bader is going to be putting on a lot of pressure, and then the pressure is just going to go to the next level in the 4th round. Villarreal Simeon will retire after that round, and it'll be a TKO loss in the 4th round. Just right before the 5th round's about to start, I think Villarreal Simeon will retire that fight, and it will be a submarine win TKO right at the end of the 4th round. We're going to move on to the co-main event for the WBC World Cruiserweight title. 12 rounds for Ilunga Makabu versus Badou Jack. And if we pull both of them up, Badou Jack, I think he's been on a Jake Paul card before. If I'm not mistaken, or am I thinking about a different boxer? He's been on a lot of these influencer boxer cards before. He was on Mayweather versus Paul. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. He was also on the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones undercard, which is pretty cool. He was on the Usyk Joshua rematch undercard, where he won that fight by split decision. And he is going to be challenging for the WBC Cruiserweight title against Ilunga Makabu, who is on a big winning streak. His only loss on this page, at least, is to Tony Bellew, who has fought a lot of the best guys in his weight class, multiple weight classes. He's on a 6-fight winning streak, and he is the current champion at cruiserweight. He was meant to fight Canelo in May of 2022. The fight got scrapped. He was meant to fight in January this year. That fight got scrapped as well. So we know he's been training. This fight was scheduled before the Tommy Fury Jake Paul fight was even announced. So Ilunga has been training longer for this fight, is what it appears to be. He's been in a training camp more time. Whereas Badou Jack, his last fight was a split decision win, so it's close, back in August of last year. So, I don't know, man. We've seen Badou Jack lose before. In 2019, he lost twice. In fact, in 2019, he went winless. He didn't win one fight in 2019. Since then, he's gone on a 5-fight winning streak. Hasn't beaten the best guys, but, win's a win. I saw this Dervin Kalina fight. He looked fairly impressive in that fight. And Ilunga, they're coming out the same kind of win, split decision win. One of them was in 2022 in January, so he hasn't fought in a while, but he's been training quite a bit. Whereas Badou Jack has been, he's had a bit more experience in between those times. He got a first round knockout in under a minute, and then he got that split decision win against Richard Rivera. I don't really know. This fight is a tougher one to call for me. I wanted to say Badou Jack, but looking at their fights, like their past fights, I'm more inclined to say Makabu. But if I really had to pick one or think about it, I don't know, man. I feel like it's a tough one. Ilunga's won a lot of unanimous majority split decisions in the past. He's been training quite a bit, but I think Badou Jack is just, I don't know, man. I think he's more hungry. He's got more knockouts. He's gotten that more of his recent fights. He didn't train more for this fight, but he's trained more overall in the past couple months. Or maybe more than that. I think Badou Jack, I'm going to say Jack by decision. He's the underdog in this fight. He's the clear underdog. I'm going to say him by decision. I think Makabu, he's probably most likely going to win this fight, but I want to go for the underdog here for this one. So I'm going to just go Badou Jack decision, especially because I think he could win this fight. And if Makabu wins by decision, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think the fight will result in a finish decision for either one of them, but I'm going to go for the underdog here. I'm going to take the gamble. I'm going to say he wins that title. But we're going to move on to the main event. 1.5 years in the making. Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. Fight's finally happening. I mean, Jesus Christ. I was getting kind of tired of Tommy Fury, pulling out. If we look at his fights with Jake Paul, the reason he pulled out of the first one back in December, he had a chest infection, and he had to pull out just like 2 weeks before the fight was meant to happen. Tyron Woodley stepped in for the rematch with Jake Paul. You all know what happened. You've all seen the knockout. And in August, they were meant to fight again. However, Tommy Fury couldn't get into the USA. They were meant to fight at Madison Square Garden. He couldn't get into the USA. And Jake Paul's MSG fight had to be canceled because it just... Many things. And I know Jake Paul's got a vengeance on Tommy Fury just for that alone. And now it's finally happening again. No excuses happening in Saudi Arabia. He's got no chest infections. He doesn't have to go to the U.S. His child was born. And now everything is good. The team, Tyson Fury, John Fury, they're all on board with this fight, and it's happening tomorrow. So, yeah, if we look at Jake Paul, his last few fights, he had one fight in 2022, whereas before he would usually have multiple fights in a year. I think, yeah, he had 3 fights in 2021. He had 2 fights in 20. Yeah. He had 2 fights in 2020, obviously because of COVID. He would have had another one in between, but he didn't. And he had that amateur fight with Deji as well. One fight with Anderson Silva in 2022. He won that fight by unanimous decision. It was fairly close, but that knockdown in the last round definitely gave him that edge, and it won him the fight for sure. So yeah, a lot of veterans in this guy's resumes. You know, Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley twice, Ben Askren, even though he's not a good striker, and Sung Gib before he got really really good. So a lot of names, lot of big names. So we're gonna look at Tommy Fury, TNT, who I mean, let's just look at some of these guys that he's fought. We'll look at 4 of them out of his 8. So we're gonna look at half his fights in his career. Callum Eide, 0-33 with 2 draws. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce this guy's name, but he's 2-42. By the way, out of the guys I'm about to name, this is the only guy with wins on his professional record. Gennadij Krajewski, 0-46, and the infamous Scott Williams, 0-23. It's not good. A lot of people have talked about Tommy Fury's the combined record of his opponents, and it's not good. It's terrible. These guys, they fight so often, and they lose so often. They probably got brain damage, honestly. Tommy Fury's fighting guys with CTE. Look how often this guy fights. This guy fights a lot. Look at how many fights in 2022 alone. He fought in March, April, June, twice in June, July, August, October twice, November, and he had a fight even this year. He got knocked out in the first round, you know. This guy, 0-46, he fights even more. Oh my God, this guy fights a lot. How many fights in, look, 2 fights in February 2022, 3 fights in March with all weeks apart from each other. Or no, that's 4 fights in March. I'm not even going to continue to list. Look, all these 2022 fights, and he just keeps losing. This guy's got CTE. Scott Williams, he's a guy in the UK who just, a lot of people beat him. Well, way too much. And I don't know, man. It's just not a good look for Tommy Fury. He clearly only picks the easy fights. And that was something that Jake Paul did early in his career. He was picking the easier fights. He picked an Sung Gib, who we all knew like he was going to beat. Nate Robinson, who we all knew he was going to beat. Ben Askren, who he knew was not a skilled striker. He beat them all. He knocked them all out. And now when it comes to fighting, you know, better strikers, you know, guys who can actually strike, who have boxed before, like Anderson Silva, like Tyron Woodley, even though Tyron Woodley's a wrestler and Anderson Silva is a guy who's better with his kicks, those wins against strikers, they're still good. Anderson Silva has incredible head movement, incredible defense. The fact that Jake Paul was able to set him down is still impressive. Jake Paul has set all of his opponents down. All of them. He knocked out Ben Askren, Nate Robinson. He set down Nate Robinson like 3 or 4 times in that fight. Set down Sung Gib 3 times. He hasn't set down Deji, but that was amateur, so I talk about that. He set down Woodley with the knockout, and he set down Anderson. The way I see this fight going, I know Jake Paul's going to set Tommy Fury down. I know he has to at least once. He has to. That's why I see this fight going. Tommy Fury's chin has not been tested. A lot of his skill has not really been tested against good guys. His most recent fight against Riley Lambert on very short notice, like few days notice, right? And Tommy Fury he was like a deer in headlights. He was not performing well in that fight, and Riley wasn't putting that pressure on him like he should have. Tommy Fury, he just coasted the fight. He threw a few shots, and then it was an exhibition, and that was it. Jake Paul was commenting on this fight, and even though Jake Paul was being hella annoying in his commentary, it was annoying to watch Tommy Fury not do much of what he was supposed to do, not fight. You know, it's just Tommy Fury in his most recent fights, he hasn't looked the best. Anthony Taylor, Tommy Fury's double the size of Anthony Taylor. He should have knocked him out the way he did Scott Williams and Gennady Krajewski, right? Or any of these guys with all these losing records, because to Anthony Taylor also had a losing record, but he just took him to a decision. He didn't do much in that fight. All he did was use his range. His arms are twice the length of Anthony Taylor's, and he couldn't use that to get a knockout. I don't know, man. He only knocks out guys who exist to lose their fights against up-and-coming guys. He can't knock out nobody else. And I don't think he'll knock out Jake Paul. There's absolutely no way he knocks out Jake Paul. That's the way I see it. Jake Paul has knocked out a lot of guys. He did knock out Tyron Woodley, who was on a 5-fight, 6-fight losing streak when he fought him. So it's not the best win. Ben Askren was on a 2-fight losing streak. He knocked him out. Ben Askren was known for having a really good chin in his career. He had only gotten knocked out once, and it was by a flying knee. And everybody gets knocked out by a flying knee, especially with a skilled, hard-hitting guy like Jorge Masvidal. Jake Paul knocked him out with an overhand right. He knocked out Nate Robinson cold, which isn't the best win. He also set down Eddie Sanghae for the first time in his career, and he did it 3 times in that fight. Set down Anderson Silva, which is something that's very hard to do. Something that I don't think a lot of guys at middleweight, a lot of top guys at middleweight were able to do to Anderson Silva, even out of his prime. So the fact that Jake Paul has been able to do these things, even if they're not in their primes, the fact that he does it is still impressive. Tommy Fury's career is not full of impressive things. This fight wasn't impressive. Anthony Taylor fight wasn't impressive. You can look at his knockouts, but they're not against good guys. Combined record of these guys, the combined wins of these 4 guys he's knocked out, 2 wins. And they won't even show up on Tapology. That's how far back they are, bro. Not even as far back as 2015. Earlier than that. So just by record alone, by opponents alone, should tell us enough. But we do got to look at their training. Tommy Fury's looked really good in training. His striking has stepped up. He's more powerful. He's more slick. He's got better technique and all that. He's been putting his mind towards this fight. Same with Jake Paul. Jake Paul, in his Anderson Silva fight, he looked hella fast. You saw the pad work. He's looking quicker. He's way faster. He's got a bit better technique. And he's now got that experience of being with a high-level striker like Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, when he fought Jake Paul, had more combined wins than all the guys Tommy Fury has knocked out. It just kind of tells you a lot. Jake Paul has been in there with some skilled fighters. He went the distance with Tyron Woodley. And then in the rematch, he was losing that fight. And even though he was losing that fight, he gets that experience. He got headbutted in that fight. He had a nasty cut, but he still managed to pull through. He's got that experience being in there, facing the adversity, and still coming back. And that was especially shown in the Anderson Silva fight. Tommy Fury has experienced no adversity in any of his fights. And that's not to say that he's doing really good. It's just that he doesn't fight good opponents. He doesn't have the experience against the best guys. He has the connections. His brother is Tyson Fury. His dad is John Fury. He's getting the right training, and it shows in his training footage. But in his fights, it does not. You do not see the same thing. So the way I see this fight going, we haven't seen Tommy Fury's chin get tested yet. So he could get knocked out. He could not. I do see a Jake Paul decision. I think that's what's most likely to happen. But I don't know. I feel like it kind of has to be a decision because Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, they both can't lose this fight. That's what's so amazing about this fight is that they both can't lose. So a decision is likely what's going to happen. But I think Tommy Fury will get set down at least once, though. I don't know if he'll get knocked out. You know what? I think he'll get set down once, no more than that. Jake Paul will face adversity. This will be one of his tougher fights. And this is definitely going to be Tommy Fury's toughest fight. I mean, no question about that. I think Jake Paul will win, and I think it'll be a unanimous decision. None of that close unanimous decision shit like Anderson Silva. It was 77-75. It was fairly close up until that 8th round. Or, Tyron Woodley. That fight was also really close, and it was so close that it ended up being a split decision. I think it'll be a bit more dominant than that. He'll win a round or two more, and he'll set him down, which will get him that extra point as well. Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, my official prediction. A lot of people have been changing their minds. I see a lot of people, where they said Jake Paul at the start, but then they changed their mind this week and said Tommy Fury. For me, I had Jake Paul by knockout at the start, when it's first announced. Now I'm going to say Jake Paul decision because I've seen more of these guys and I know more of what they could do, especially Tommy Fury, because he's not showed a lot in these last fights. He has to step it up in the Jake Paul fight. In his last fight, it's an exhibition, so if he wanted to coast it, it's an exhibition, nothing matters. This fight matters. This fight is everything. So I think he's going to definitely show much more, but I think Jake Paul will just be a bit too much. And I think he's going to get that decision, unanimous decision. I don't know who's going to fight next or when. I think Mike Perry would be fun, but I think it's also time that he moves up if he does win this fight. Thing with Jake Paul is he will be ranked in the WBC top 40 if he wins this fight. Same with Tommy Fury. Whoever wins will be ranked in the top 40 of the WBC cruiserweight rankings, and I'm all for it. I can't wait to see where that ends up going. And yeah, this video is way longer than I wanted it to be, but if you made it all the way through, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And yeah, let's hope I get my picks right. I'd be honestly ashamed if I got any of these picks wrong, but it is what it is. And good luck to my guy Bedtime. He's got his fight this weekend. Good luck to you, man. Bring home the W. Best of luck in that. And I'm gonna see you all probably tomorrow, or no, I'm gonna see you all today when I make my my immediate thoughts after UFC Vegas 70. Yeah, you'll see me tonight. So see you all then.